Greetings, my magnificent ones. Sue Paulson here, your magnificence mentor. In the lab this week, we were talking about trust. That was the big topic that was in front of us. So we dissected that topic a little bit with definitions and synonyms and so on. So just to give a context here, when we talk about trust, we're talking about our belief in, our faith for, some certainty, some assurance, some conviction, some reliance. All of those things relate to trust. Now, if I look at the different avenues of trust in relation to not trusting, as an example, we have lack of trust, which I think simply implies that maybe we don't have enough information. We don't know the situation or the person well enough to know whether we can trust. So there's a lack of it until we add to whatever information we already have to set the stage for being able to trust. There's, of course, distrust, which simply means you are really sure that you won't trust or you can't trust either an individual or a situation or a group. And one of the avenues of trust that was brought up on Monday was misplaced trust. Well, I know when I was in my younger days, I naively trusted pretty well everybody and everything until something happened and I realized, ooh, I put my trust in that person or in that situation and it was misplaced. And then, of course, I swung into either distrusting or just not feeling confident in my ability to trust. Now, I really believe that all trust is self-trust. When it boils right down, even though we're surrounded by people and situations that we have an opportunity to either place our trust in or not, I think when I dissect it, at least for myself, it comes down to the idea that really, do I trust my judgment? Do I trust my discernment? Do I trust that I have enough information? All of those factors weigh in. Do I trust my gut? Do I trust my intuition? Is really what it comes down to for me. I realized that in lots of cases, I have lacked trust in myself in certain situations, depending on what had happened. So if, for example, you've ever had a money issue, maybe you don't trust your ability to spend wisely, as an example, or you don't trust your ability to budget or stick to your budget. I know I've had those things happen where there were times when I spent foolishly and I'm going, oh boy, I have to rein myself in. And so it's interesting how different ways we approach life can create this sense of trust or this sense of a lack of trust in some way, shape, or form. Now, when I look at it in relation to portraying or believing in or awakening to our magnificence, that lack of trust, which really goes right back to fear. There's a fear lurking there somewhere that is keeping us from loving ourselves enough that we can trust ourselves regardless of the situation, or we can trust that the outcome will not be harmful. So I think it's important that we really have a good think about ourselves in relation to how we trust, who we trust, what we trust, and of course, if in fact we do trust ourselves, because it colors whatever we do in a certain way. Excuse me. So because I've had some interesting challenges along the way with relationships in terms of intimate relationships with husbands and partners and so on. There's a part of me that's not quite trusting my ability to pick. And yet when I look at the whole scenario of who I've been in relationship with, they were always the right person at the right time for where I was at. So if I suspend the judgment of myself about that, say, oh, Sue, this wasn't right and that didn't work and you didn't pick very good. Well, really, yes, I picked exactly the way I needed to pick for the situation and the circumstances that there were. So there's no reason to not trust that I won't do exactly the same thing next time. Now, the other piece that I wanted to weigh in on here is to think about trust not in degrees, but in based on situations. So think about it. When you jump in your car and you go to drive, there's a lot of built-in trust because the conditions, at least in my city, are such that the city has set up conditions to make it safe to travel the roads. So there are traffic lights which signal when it's your turn to go and when it's your turn to stop. There are stop signs that cause us to halt the vehicle, look all around to make sure it's safe to proceed. We have signal lights that indicate which way a driver is turning. We have lanes that designate, okay, this is your lane and that's their lane, especially for oncoming traffic. So we've set up conditions so that we feel as safe as possible operating our vehicle and driving. Now, the moment that someone violates those conditions, then we have a safety issue. So, for example, if someone all of a sudden weaves coming towards you, weaves into your lane, whoa, you don't trust them to not hit you. And so you take whatever kind of action you believe is important in order to avoid a crash. So the first moment when everything was working fine, you trusted that you were going to get to where you wanted to go safely. The second that vehicle is in your lane, then all bets are off. Like, whoa, this is not safe now, and I don't trust. So that's how quickly the situation can change. And then we have sometimes rapid fire decisions to make based on that. So what do we do then to set up the situations in our lives and the way we approach things so that we can have confidence, so that we can feel as if we can rely on ourselves and therefore rely on others to make everything work for us in the way that is our version of heaven on earth? How do we do that? Well, one of the things that I've been working on since we did our workshop is I've been journaling about what situations I find I have not trusted myself in and continue to kind of hold myself back because of past mistakes, misjudgments, whatever I thought it was. So I'm reversing that process now to say, well, if it was a lack of information, now I know more. And so the situation has shifted and changed for my benefit. So I can forgive myself. So there's been a lot of self-forgiveness in this process to help me come to terms with what that's all about for me so that I can release it and let it go, to free myself up, to pick differently, to trust myself instead of not trust myself. When we talk about the magnificence matrix, we talk about warrior mode, where the world feels very unfriendly, and even though we feel we have some power, we're not that willing to trust anybody else. We trust ourselves, but as far as anybody else or any other situations, we have a a stronger degree of either lack of trust or mistrust. If we're in victim mode, we tend to feel we can't trust ourselves and we can't trust anyone else. Well, that's a pretty helpless kind of scenario. So that bears some examination to say, well, what kind of power do I really have here? And how is fear holding me back? How can I create a situation that feels more and more and more safe so that I can trust? So it may be baby steps if you're in that victim mentality where you feel the world's against you and maybe you feel you're against yourself too. So how do you work out of that to begin to feel more trust internally? Being able to trust yourself is a very healthy thing. Not trusting yourself, I think it puts us into that fight or flight mode where we find it tough to make decisions and we keep second guessing ourselves and we have that monkey mind just rolling and rolling and rolling and it won't let up. So check it out for yourself. See if it's a factor of not trusting. And do you really have a super good reason for not trusting, or is it just mistaken beliefs, miscommunication, things that you didn't know and now you do, so you could change your mind? So that's a lot of it, is changing your mind about whether you're ready to trust or not. And it's up to you. You can take as long in this process as you want to make the shifts. I do, however, recommend that you do make the shift from not trusting to trusting. How can we do that? And what steps do we need to take? So that's what I wanted to play with today, to give you a little heads up to think about trust in relation to yourself, in relation to other people, and how you might make a little more progress, do some shifting and changing so that your level of trust or your situational trust, there's more and more situations in which you feel confident that you can rely on yourself, rely on situations, and rely on others because you know how to set up the situation so that you can feel comfortable and safe in it. You know you are magnificent enough to do this, so I really encourage you to do that. Oh, and by the way, we're taking a summer break from the Magnificence Lab as far as our Pathways to Magnificence workshops. You may or may not know that we have been doing one free online workshop a month for 90 minutes. But come September, I believe it's the first Tuesday in September, we will be restarting. And I invite you to join our workshop in September. It's just to simply go to magnificencelab.org/workshop. You'll see what we've done before in the lab for workshops, and you'll also have an opportunity to register for the September workshop soon. In the meantime, take the best care of you. Trust yourself enough to love yourself fully. Bye for now.